please remember the word pancreas. You're going to see so much pancreatic cancer now and brain cancer. Because those are the kind of cancers that we worked with to develop this terrible virus with.
So at what point did you figure out that you, Mary Sherman, Alton Ochsner, David Ferrie, and Lee were all a part of this covert plan to take out Castro?
Well, what happened is that accidentally I was put on the covert side. I was never supposed to be on the winning side because I came early, and Lee and all them thought I was because of all the knowledge I had and speak Russian and had and mentioned I was going to work with Mary Sherman, and they had asked for an assistant. And it's this need to know thing could really backfire because they didn't give enough information. So I ended up being on the side that was witting. Well, I really messed things up, and when they were going to go and inject volunteer prisoners, that if this worked, it would kill them. When I objected, they kicked me out and sent me back. But they had a problem because if I'm just sent back and I'm not doing any more cancer research, people say, what happened in New Orleans? So they put me to very fancy, high-class Peninsula Chem research, and I've got all the documents showing I did high-class research there because they've got to some way divorce me from cancer research but not make it, so they put me in with NASA contracts and all that kind of thing.
Okay, so how long were you working with Mary Sherman and David Ferrie in New Orleans on this cancer research?
At first, it would have nothing to do with me because we met in public, and she doesn't want to acknowledge. I mean, I didn't realize how secret all that was at that point. But about some days later, I'm taken and introduced to her by David Ferrie, and she apologized for not speaking to me at the party where she had to pick up tumors, actually, from David Ferrie, and it'd show up at this party, and I'm there, and she wouldn't speak to me, and I was hurt. I couldn't understand what was going on. The book is, everything's explained in my book, so you can see what really was going on. Anyway, so Mary apologizes, and then she said, look, by the way, this is the day that they conquered Mount Everest, so I've got the dates, because I remember all these dates, Mm-hmm. So it was the anniversary of the conquering of Mount Everest. That's what they're talking about when Mary introduced me. David Ferrie sitting there, wow, David is here. And, she apologized for not talking to me at that time, said, look, we've got big fish to fry here. We've got a big problem. We thought we were just trying to take out Castro, that this is very important to take him out because save the world from World War III. Boy, I was all for that. He was aiming missiles at my family in Florida. What the heck, and everybody. And I saw it like somebody today would say, hey, if you could take out Putin and it would look like just cancer and nobody would guess it was bioweapon, would you do it? And save us from all this Ukraine stuff and all the all the dangers. So I was given a song and dance, and all of us were really. Ochsner knew what he was doing. That man, if you knew that he had advisors he was working with. They even stopped the Vietnam War from. Anna Chenault was good friends. Her husband died in Ochsner's clinic. I mean, or he went there diagnosed with cancer and everything. That she went to Ochsner before they went to the summit. She's the one that called off the summit. Anna Chenault did. That would have stopped the Vietnam War. These people didn't. They wanted the Vietnam War to happen. Kennedy would not give it to them.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, the Joint Chiefs of Staff also had a plan to
Ochsner's knee-deep in all these people.
To nuke China and Russia before Russia was able to get their hands on ICBMs, which would have been in January of 1964.
See, you know these things, so you understand that we felt an urgency. You take out Castro, and CIA is going to focus on taking Cuba because then they can do a revolution, with Castro gone, get Cuba back, and that means maybe they won't take out Kennedy. Now, we weren't sure, but we thought that they would leave Kennedy alone because they'd have their little victory over Kennedy. We got Cuba back anyway, that kind of thing. And that they would get more power over Kennedy. But you know what? They'd already made up their mind. They didn't care what happened to Castro. So Lee has been actually trained to keep this stuff alive. We showed him how to do that.
You guys showed him how to keep these viruses alive.
That's right.
And travel with them. Did he travel with like a little like ice pack thing?
Well, no, because that would have been what it was. We had a special, it looks like just a regular lunch, a thermos. Only the thermos has air vents and everything. I had a different kind of indicator. Indicator tells you how much acid or base is. As it gets more acid, you have to change the medium inside and put new. He had one change. He could make one change. So we had basically 2 thermoses. You can't carry 3 or 4. You can't.
Okay.
Nobody. But if you looked at it, literally, you could put it in your mouth and gargle with it. It tastes almost like chicken soup. I'm saying that because the cancer cells are sticking. This is a giant test tube, really. It's all glass inside liner. That's where the cancer was. The fluid in between keeping them alive, only thing would be there would be like maybe some dead cancer cells or something, nothing alive. So, I mean, you could literally, if you wanted to taste it, it tastes like weak chicken soup. Who'd want it? No, it'd be like bone broth. Yeah, it'd be like bone broth. You'd never guess.
So, okay. So you guys taught him how to travel with this cancer thing.
And how to change the fluid one time. So
how to change the fluid to keep it alive.
That's right, because you only have 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah.
And how? And what?
And it's got to get light. It's got to get. It doesn't get any of that.
So
it's going to die.
You guys packed him up with this stuff before he went down to Mexico.
That's right.
And
the entire detail on how we did it is all in the book. And I've got, you can see all kinds of documents and everything.
And what was his plan once he got to Cuba?
All right. Well, no, originally he didn't want to go. Remember, he didn't want to go to Cuba.
Well, who was he going to give this to?
He was supposed to just go to a souvenir shop and sit it down and wait, make sure it got. Nobody came.
Souvenir shop where?
In Mexico City.
In Mexico City?
Yeah. The guy never showed up. This is terrible. It happens sometimes. He could have been.
So he never actually wanted to go to Cuba?
No, not really. Now, we can kind of prove that because he goes to get a visa, emergency transit visa. Transit is a key. That means he never didn't want to stay there. All right? All these things about, I wanted to go to Cuba. He wouldn't get a transit visa. He'd just get a visa. Transit visa means he just wants to go through. He just wants to drop this stuff off.
Okay.
I mean, I've got so many explanations for what they think are crazy on his side. All right? But he wants to act kind of weird because he really doesn't want to go. He knows darn well that if this guy didn't show up, his handler was supposed to tell him, hey, everything's okay. Instead, his handler took off, it turned out 6 days earlier. Lee was able to trace, that's how he actually traced the actual name of his handler, because he was told he was Benson and Benton. And then when he met with Antonio Vestiana of Operation 66, it's a...
Yeah.
All right. Lee was there, and Vestiana sees him, and he says to David Atlee Phillips is standing there, but David Atlee Phillips had already told Lee that his name was Benson or Benton, okay?
Okay.
So Vestiana came early, and he says, hola, Senor Bishop. Now we've got Benson, you've got Benton, you've got Bishop. Lee, really, we call him Mr. B, because obviously Lee was so far down the list that he didn't even care about sorting out the right name to give him. All that's important because when that plane, they found out, took off with his handler in it, whether you want to call him Mr. B.
Okay.
6 days earlier, he checked all the plane schedules and realized, because he used to live in Fort Worth, that there were only a couple planes, and the one that of importance is this guy kept going to Fort Worth. So he figured out it was David Atlee Phillips. That was his real name.
Okay. All right. So he was supposed to take this vial in this thermos and drop it off in a souvenir shop.
Yes.
Where?
Well, this was in Mexico City. Now, here's the thing. He's got to make it look to the CIA that he really cares. So he's got to at least make the effort. But he doesn't want to really be sent there and stay or any of that, because we've got plans that Mexico City knows about, but Dallas doesn't, because they don't communicate that well with each other. No, you'll have all kinds of things going. Win Scott had so much stuff about Lee Oswald. You have James Jesus Angleton, and when he dies, he goes and steals everything out of Win Scott's safe. Oh, yes, he does, because he's got stuff there. Win Scott knew that Lee started an affair with Sylvia Duran, not because he didn't love me or anything, but because he has to make himself look useful, because Lechuga was having an affair with Sylvia Duran and wanted to marry her, and he's the he was ambassador just until recently to the UN for Cuba. That is very important to penetrate. So Lee had this going on with Sylvia. He seduced her in a matter of 24 hours. He is an expert.
Wow.
He'd been taught in Atsugi how to seduce women.
Silver tongue, huh?
More than that.
Oh, yeah?
Oh my gosh. Puppy dog eyes and vulnerable and sweet and tender and everything that you would ever dream of. He was taught all that. And,
Wow.
and
So who was supposed to pick up that thermos? Did he
we
know,
don't,
did he know who or no?
He had a list of contacts. He had their names memorized. So when that didn't work and when he was afraid he couldn't get the visa in time, he actually went to the University of Mexico in Mexico City there and ran into some students who were associated with another medical contact. He couldn't reach him either. By the time he's invited into a party with Sylvia, he's off by himself with these college students. They say, how did he know about us? It's because of the contact names he had, okay? They couldn't figure out how he knew that they were actually pro-Castro, but
Right.
he knew.
So what did he do with that thing when nobody picked it up?
Well, he's got a problem. He's
Yeah.
got to leave it. He can't take it back with him. It's got rotten stuff in it. I mean,
Right.
So he leaves it behind, but he stops at the U.S. Public Health Service right there at Laredo before you cross the border. It's on record. Although they've retracted it, we have the records.
Right.
And apparently he left a contact, told them somebody there, probably in some encryption or something, I don't know, because the two people working there didn't understand why he was there. But he told me he left information where he left it there, at the souvenir shop.
Now, at any point during any of this, did anybody like brief you on what you were doing? Like anybody officially from?
I've had it since. Twice I've been what they call been debriefed.
When was the first time that happened? Like you just went to New Orleans on
Both
this
times
assignment, and then you met Lee, and then
both times these guys were drunk, by the way.
Right. So you met Lee, you get into this secret program to develop this cancer stuff, but like these are just people you're meeting who are saying this shit. How do they prove to you that you're doing this stuff? Like how does Lee or Mary or anyone else prove to you that you guys are actually doing research for the military to take out Castro?
First of all, we're having these animals die even by airborne, and that's really scary. So I'm finding out that all the marmosets have died. All of them died in such a short period of time, and it's the same stuff. I'm so familiar with it. They have gone through we did the first gain of function. This is all gain of function over and over again. We're the first.
Right.
And I brought a document. We don't have time to show you.
I understand that, but what I'm trying to say is like, how did they prove to you that this was the objective?
Well, first of all, a whole lot of money went into this. And big money, big bucks. And this thing started March 23rd, 1962, a whole year before me. And they had a linear particle accelerator. That thing's worth a lot of money.
Did you ever see it?
No, but Lee was sent there all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
And so you guys were like in an apartment doing this stuff, right? This was David Ferry's apartment, is that right?
Yes, but no, you have to understand. Of course, I had access to other lab facilities, but that's where I spent almost all my time.
So basically, there was like the underground research being done in David Ferry's apartment.
Yeah.
He had like tons of these mice, rats everywhere.
No. Okay, look, we had this ring of labs. The problem is that ring was complete. That we were afraid they'd figure out about each other, so they break that with Ferry. All right.
Okay.
All right. And Mary Sherman is the nexus between that. All right. Now, all our reports, when they go to Mary, she goes straight to Oxnard with it and all that. So then we start this every Tuesday, the whole ring started over again and all that. We don't have any way of any control over what they decide. Like several times we had to kill 500 mice at a time to pull out these horrible noxious.
Now, what was Mary doing with these mice, taking them to the hospital and putting them under this $10 million particle accelerator?
Well, that happened too, but mostly we're working with actually the tumors themselves. Not the live mice, yes, always thousands of them, because all the time they were hoping to get something even more powerful. They had this machine, doing it and all that. The bottom line for me was I had to go and assess that this stuff. Please remember the word pancreas. You're going to see so much pancreatic cancer now and brain cancer. It's those are the kind of cancers that we worked with to develop this terrible virus with, okay? And, of course, we're seeing, then they're going to do it on humans. And that's when I realize how deep I'd gotten into something because I was told they had terminal disease. It turned out they're perfectly healthy.
Who?
The prisoners that they brought in from Angola prison. And I gave you a document showing it. Dick Russell shows that they were, since 1960, they were using prisoners from Angola prison and doing stuff there with, Heath was doing it, and we have other names that are associated.
And how close did you get to this?
How close?
How close did you get to these prisoners that were being tested
All
on?
right. I remember I told you I had a blood test developed. Whether or not you have cancer is running around your blood. The idea is you're going to inject them, and if it's still there, we tag that with radioactive iodine. So any cell of these injected cells, within 72, they can multiply, and every time you do the trace is going to get weaker by 50%. Think about that. Then 25%. So you've got to get in there pretty soon. On the other hand, you have to wait long enough to see if the human being's going to sift it out. If they get rid of it, it doesn't work. That's good news. So I was willing to go along with that. They were going to kick me out after this because this blood test, if it turned out that the person sifted out of their body, I could say, don't do it to anybody else. It doesn't work. See? On the other hand, if it did, I could say, don't do it to anybody else because it works. So I had to go up there and do the test just to stop it. To stop it.
Right.
And when I did that, I learned, I centrifuged everything down. I did the test, and the radioactive material was still there, so it was going to kill them because it was multiplying and they couldn't get rid of it. I knew they succeeded. We have a biological weapon. This thing was handed off to MD Anderson Hospital. I have documents from that. They don't like me to talk about that. I get in trouble every time I mention it. A lot of bad things have happened to me.
Okay. So, and all of this cancer research that you got, well,
They froze it. I actually helped create materials that they wanted so they could freeze it so that it would live almost forever. Understand that cancer cells in a line, unless it's one of these, what they call immortals, they're after 28, 30 or whatever, they're going to divide. They won't do it anymore. They're going to die off. So they put it in freezer. Then you can multiply tons of it, at any time you want at that level.
Isn't it true that that Mary was also trying to develop some sort of cancer vaccine?
Well, that's how it began.
That's how it began. Oh, that was before all of this.
Yes, and then they realized that they had something that could help the country avoid World War III. It's the way it was sold to them.
So at some point it got co-opted.
It did.